folks, Professor K here. Today I'm going to show you my process from start to finish of how I got my hand-drawn logo from our last video all the way through to a finalized logo in Illustrator. Let's get started. All right, so to start with, I've created a square canvas in Illustrator, just a 5 by 5 inch canvas. And over in here in my photos, I've taken a photo of the hand-drawn logo and I'm just pasting it in to Illustrator now. I'm going to rotate it by holding Shift and using the corner to rotate. And then I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, just so it's a little bit easier to work with. Now, the first thing that you can try when you have a hand-drawn image like this is what's called image trace. Image trace in Illustrator will try to trace out the lines on an image automatically and create a really nice looking logo out of it. It sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't work that well. So to help me remember what this looks like, I'm going to put the original over here and leave this as the image traced version. Let's start by selecting the image we want to image trace and then going up in the top bar and selecting image trace. When you click that, it's going to have some defaults applied. And you'll see that it does an okay job just by default. So you can see here that when we zoom in, we've got these kind of raggedy looking lines in here that Illustrator's tried to create. This is a sign that this may be too detailed to do a proper image trace with. We're going to play with some of the settings in here to see if we can get it looking a little bit better. I'd rather have it looking like this over here, where the look is a little bit more natural, but that's pretty hard to achieve with image trace. To try out some different options, what we can do is we can go to the image trace panel and adjust some of these options to see if we can get a better result. One way that we could try and get a better result here is by increasing the number of paths. So let's see, if you don't see this, it may be hidden under Advanced. Let's open up Advanced and increase the number of paths that we have. And this may take a moment to process. Our goal here is to get a better texture here, because I can always retrace over this with a pen tool. That's pretty easy. What's harder is to get that proper texture. So I'm going to see if it's possible to get the nicer texture out of here. The downside to adding more paths or more corners is that there'll be more lines in the logo. Basically, with so many lines in here, it's a hard file to deal with, and you'll see why in a moment. This threshold up at the top says when pixels should be turned to black or white. So for example, if we drag this up to more here, you'll see that everything gets darker. That's because the threshold to turn something to a black pixel is much lower, right? Or conversely, the pixels darker than this particular value will be converted to black. If you do less, most of the image will be white. So you can see that this can adjust the texture and where it shows up as well. What I'm finding here is that I'm having a hard time getting this texture to look good on my R. It looks okay down here, but I'm not sure that that's the best it could be. So this might not be a good candidate for image trace. I'm going to leave this alone, and I'm going to put this just kind of off to the side. And next I'm going to try a different option. I'm going to try tracing with my pen tool and see if I like that any better. So here, I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm just going to take a few minutes and try tracing this out. All right, well, you know what? I suppose image trace is going to be the best looking thing then. In that case, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to expand my tracing result. And when I go to expand it, if you look over here, notice how many itty bitty little points there are here. I want to try and reduce those. So I'm going to start by just selecting the white, hitting the minus, and now that's gone. I'm going to drag and drop over all my excess stuff in the background. And I'm just going to focus now on some of these little inner pieces. Get rid of those by clicking and deleting twice. And if you're finding that you have a lot of these little white bits and pieces here, and maybe during your image trace you forgot to ignore white like I did, another thing that you can do is select same and then same fill color. And that will select everything with white as a fill color. Hit delete and that will get rid of it much easier. All right, so let's see how this is looking here. It doesn't look perfect yet. It's still a little rough, but it's not bad. Let's take a few minutes to clean this up now. What could we do to clean this up? I think that, well, for one thing, these are a little bit too close. And then some of the edges on these could be just neatened up a little bit. So I'm going to try tracing over this with my pen tool, just to get that same sort of feel, but just a little bit neater. So let's go up here. And you may find that even as you start, maybe the pen tool isn't the best. Maybe you decide it's a circle that you want. Sometimes I play around with these things to kind of figure out what the best approach is. Circle actually might not be bad here, because then what we can do is give it a really nice large stroke, make it feel a little bit neater. We can even do a little bit of a variable profile here. So let's move this out of the way for a second. Let's see what here this looks like. And maybe we could try some different width profiles to see what we like best. Increase and decrease a little bit. Kind of like the look of this one. It has a nice bottom edge that will give this some heft to it. So next, let's replace these outer areas with that sort of circle. Now you'll notice I had to select some things a little differently to get that to happen. That's because part of this image trace connected the end of the circle, the edge of the circle, to our type. So I needed to actually take that out. So here, now that we have this, I'm just gonna play with that a little bit. One thing that I'm noticing that we have here is a little bit of a conflict between this and this edge of this top thing here and the edges of these. So to find out where we want that to be, we're going to move this to the back by doing Shift Command left bracket. And then I'm going to just draw out using my pen tool and then using a white fill without that being selected, of course. Let's try a new selection. All right, so white in front, no stroke. I'm gonna draw out just on top of here where I would like this to be. And then I can shift that to the back and then go up one, and it will look like it's cut that out. It hasn't yet. I'm gonna show you how to do that in just a moment. But for now, let's focus on getting some nice ideas of where we want these pieces to end. I'm going to take this out here so that the texture there can be the star of the show. And I'm going to do the same over here and here, leaving roughly the same amount of space between each. Now, instead of sending all of these to the back, one thing that we could do is just click once on the rest of the logo and bring it to the front. Shift Command right bracket. And now we can see roughly where things are ending and adjust if need be. I'm going to adjust this path because it just looks a little bit funky the way it is. I think I want more of that kind of relationship here. And if I go and really refine this, I might even add an anchor point here and then use my anchor point tool to give it a little bit of a curvature. So let's zoom right in here. And then notice that we now have these anchor points that we can give this just a little bit of curve too, so it'll feel more natural, like it's really hugging the edge of this brush stroke. All right, so that's looking better. Now to actually go and remove this white from here, which we need to do because watch what'll happen if we put a color behind this, right? Let's go ahead and select just something that we can see. Let's do like a dark red, put it on back. Now see how all that white is showing up? We don't want that. We want to cut this part out of this path. And we're going to do this using the Pathfinder tool. So to do this, first we need to create a shape out of this. You're going to go to Object and Expand Appearance. That will create a path from the stroke that we just had. Next, what we need to do is select both the shape and the path at the same time that we want to cut out. Then go to Window and Pathfinder. The Pathfinder palette allows you to change the way that shapes interact and also to remove or add shapes to each other. In this case, we want to remove shapes from each other. We're going to try the minus front option here. Let's do minus front. That's right here. And now we can see that this is gone. We're going to do this once for each of these little blips here. Now what happens if we do multiple at the same time? Could we take a shortcut here? So here, all of our white pieces are in front and our stroke is in the back. Let's try a minus front and see what happens. Oh no, it's gone. The reason why that doesn't work is because it will only subtract the frontmost piece from the entire thing. So you really have to do these one by one. And in this case, you can see that sometimes even this doesn't stay where you think it should be. So let's try this one more time. These are now definitely in front. Let's try minus front. Nope, still doesn't work. It's because it's going to, Pathfinder is really meant to interact with two shapes at the same time, not multiple. Oh boy. Let's try Shift Control G. Sometimes it's a little finicky. Here's this, here's that, minus front, okay. Shift Control G, bring to front, Shift click, minus front. Here, bring to front, Shift Control G, or Command, rather. Select, minus front. And as you go, one thing you might notice is we've got this little extra bit here, right? So we could just get rid of that. Let's just do that now. Bring this to the front, and then our final piece should be that. Oh, much, much better already. Let's take the red from back here so that we can see a little more clearly what needs to be cleaned up. All right, so as I take a look at this, one thing that I'm not digging is how rough the line work on the Rebel is. Are there any other options for, say, smoothing this that maybe I'm missing? So I'm going to take a moment to pause and think about that. All right, so I'm back and I've investigated this a little bit further. And it turns out there actually is a tool in Illustrator that's built for this. This is called the Smooth tool. So underneath your pencil tool in Illustrator, if you click and hold, there is a Smooth tool. And what the Smooth tool will do is when you are clicked onto a path, make sure you have your path selected. If I do something without anything selected, it's not going to do anything. When you have a path selected and then you click to use the Smooth tool, when you drag over some points, watch these blue points and watch them disappear. It will try to smooth them out so that they're consistent. So what I'm going to do is just go through and see how I can do this. You know, can I create smoother lines using the Smooth tool? And this actually looks like it's doing a pretty good job. So I'm going to keep that up. And one thing I'm noticing here is that I've got a lot of these anchor points here. So I may not need all these anchor points. Another way that I can do this is by using the delete anchor point tool. And what that will allow me to do is have just 1 or 2 control anchor points that will kind of really control what this looks like. So let's just go back here and notice how much smoother this curve on the inside of the R looks and the outside versus some of these other areas. Now I'm going to go through and continue trying to smooth this out so that it feels a little bit more professional. That worked kind of okay. I'm noticing this works a little bit better in like short sections. Yeah, like this. And it doesn't always work perfect. You can see it's finicky business though, getting this kind of stuff to look good. You also don't want to take out all of the personality here. Even the R up here is getting to look almost a little too smooth. I'm going to take away this pen tool point because I don't think it's really adding anything. And then I'm going to go back down here. And maybe I'll start from here. Just smoothing this out. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And you can see I'm not being too perfect or nitpicky with this. I'm just guiding it as to where I'd like the curve to go. It's looking better every moment. Now over here, because of the extra texture there, I may choose to backfill it with a little bit of pen tool. That's looking pretty good. It's looking better. That's looking really good. And it's still retaining some of its personality, which I really am digging about this smoothing approach. Now see, one thing that I'm wanting to tweak here is the relationship and the thickness of this E here. Yeah, it's almost there. This kind of fine detail work is really important in logos, because ultimately what you're doing is kind of creating your own type. So you want it to look very balanced and even. That looks pretty good. Still got some personality, but not too much. Ooh, this is really funky. I think here I'm actually going to use my pen tool to clean this up just because it's so rough. And maybe I'll even do like this kind of thing. And again, using my Pathfinder this time, I am going to go to the intersect option. They need to have both this and this selected for that to work. Let's try this one. Okay, that's a little bit better. So that was the divide option. The divide option will allow us to take out these extra bits that we don't want and leave the ones that we do. So I can see that that's sort of where I want to be. I might want to go like that. Yeah, just really neaten that up. Put that down here. Eventually we'll clean this up using the Pathfinder again, but for right now, you can see it's got some extra in there. Let's just leave it. Yeah, that's looking much improved. All right, let's go over here, back to our smoothing tool, smooth this out. And we have to have this selected to do that. Very good. I am going to take out this anchor point. It's just a little easier to not have to deal with that. And then just adjust the handles of that to smooth it. All right, looking better every moment. This sure is finicky work, huh? Let's move that over a bit. It's looking pretty good. Now let's get this one highlighted, and work on the inside. Smoother, very nice. And for these kinds of curves, it's perfectly fine to just do 1 or 2 in the middle. It doesn't need to be so many anchor points, you know? There's really no reason to have more than a couple here. Let's zoom in on that one since it's being a little finicky. Oops. Here I want this. There we go. All right, smooth tool on the right side. Nice. That looks relatively good. I want a nice sharp corner over here. This is not looking good, so I'm gonna use my Option key to move those independently. All right, continuing on. Select this, grab our smooth tool, smooth over this curve, smooth, smooth. I'm really getting the hang of this. Let's just get rid of some of the extra points here. We don't need so many, like I said. And what I'm doing here is I'm dragging out the handles to make a smoother curve so that it feels gentler and neater. I'm also going to increase the size of this bowl here. Smooth that curve out. And let's see if that looks like it makes sense. Yes, it does. Okay. Phew. And eventually we're going to get to a point where we need to really smooth these out. So one thing I'm seeing here is that this is just a little too large. It needs to be a little gentler. But overall, not looking too bad. Now, right here, I'm imagining where the end of this might come up. So that would probably be around here. I'm imagining the brush stroke along this line. I'm trying to create a nice natural edge for it. Just going to delete this anchor point. It's not really doing much for us. And this one needs to be a little bit smoother than it is. So I'm going to give it a little curve that matches this bottom one. Not perfect yet. I can still see there's some oddness between that relationship there. So I'm going to fix that now. This should go down a bit. This should go up a bit. This should overall have like a little bit more of a swoosh there. So maybe that does need to be straighter. Maybe it doesn't look right without it. Let's zoom out and see if that looks any more. Yeah, that looks better. All right, so we need to separate these two. How can we do that? Let's draw out a line to start. Let's give it a white stroke and kind of start there. And I am just going to put that there and put the rest of this line down here. And I'll use the smooth tool to get this perfect. But let's go to Object, Expand. Expand both fill and stroke. That will create lines that we can use here. And then we can use the Pathfinder tool to modify this a little bit. So let's just do, whoops, minus front isn't going to work there, huh? Why is that? Oh, there, works fine. Sometimes it's a little finicky about that. All right, so let's go back to our smooth tool here. Continue working just in small chunks to get this smoothed out. Might take a couple tries, but that's okay. It's worth it. Do this, do that. Oh, right, and we should make sure that this one is selected. Ooh, I don't like what that's doing. I'm gonna not do that. Let's go back to this. Okay, that looks better. Then down towards the bottom here, do the same thing. Just smooth it out. This one here I can tell is coming up too far for this to look good. That should really be there. So what I think the smooth tool is doing here is a combination of trying to place things and removing anchor points, which is what sometimes I manually do. But I do like that I don't have to manually remove all the anchor points. It's nice that it does a little bit of that work for me. Let's just take care of those couple there so we don't have to deal with them. And let's make this a little bit smaller. I want to have a more delicate end. Okay, looking better. One thing that I can see is really different here is the relationship between these two E's. And I think I pointed that out while I was as something that I'd need to edit in Illustrator when I was finalizing this. So I'm going to do that part now. I'm going to, first of all, fix up this stroke width, make sure it's relatively the same. And again, my goal isn't to make this perfect. If it was, I would have done this with a pen trace, but I tried that and I didn't like how the shapes were coming out when I was tracing it manually. So here, I think I'm going to try and draw over this. And I'm going to use white, and I'm just going to redraw my own, kind of keeping in mind. I think that's going to be a little too harsh. I'm going to start more towards the bowl of the E here. Okay, so up like that, up like that. And then I want it just like a little bit, yeah, like that. Let's see how that looks, how that feels a little off. Let's try something. This feels weird because it's not connecting up with this bottom line very well. So that's what's going on here and what I'm trying to fix. This is looking a little bit more realistic. Still not quite right because this really needs to be up a little further. How do I do that without this and this one? Really need to be for that to make sense. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. And then I can decrease the width on that L there, and that'll get that looking typographically good. Okay, so back to the Pathfinder, we're going to use -front, and now we've committed that, and that is what that looks like. Let's also take this opportunity to add all these together. We're going to use add. Oops, that was a bad move. Okay, here we have this. What about this? Here's that. Let's add these two first. Add. Okay, perfect. I'm going to take away this anchor point because it's not doing a lot for us. Same with this one and this one. And just simplify a little bit here. Because simplifying it will give us cleaner shapes. And then here I want a little bit more edge to this particular. I want it to have a little bit more of a point. Go down like this. Now this feels weird. I think this needs to come down a little. No, this one needs to come down a little. Maybe they both do. This needs to come up a little. Okay. Yeah. All right. Smooth tool, smooth tool. Getting it smoother. Moving some of these extra bits and pieces around. Let's get rid of this one here and this one here. They're not doing a lot for us right now. Grab this. And now this one's responsible for a lot. So let's just watch this a little bit closer out here to understand what we're doing. Gonna make that a little bit thinner. Delete a couple of these extras. And then pulling out the handles again to make this a little bit smoother. This goes too far up. You might be wondering, how am I deciding which of these anchor points to keep and which ones to get rid of? And to be honest, it's mostly a guess and see how it feels sort of game. But one thing that I'm doing is I'm watching for like where a curve should start and finish. Is what I'm trying to do here. It's mostly working. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Let's smooth out this interior one too. And remember too that each time we remove an anchor point like this, we're making this just a little bit easier to work with for everyone else as well. So it's a good thing. All right, let's pop back out of our layers here and just look at how this is looking. This is looking pretty good. It's getting cleaned up. It's looking nice. Oh, hard work though. Now at this point I have to wonder if this would have been faster if I'd just traced it using the pen tool, but I didn't really like the way it was looking, you know? Here we go, that's looking better. And I'm gonna leave the edges of the very edge of this line looking a little rougher because I think that'll look good. Now here's the thing. This E is looking rough. So let's fix that. Let's get rid of this excess pen point here, this one too. It's not really doing anything for us. Take care to only move this and this. And we're also going to, let's just get rid of that one. That one's getting in our way. I want to make this a little bit more delicate. This E in particular is really in rough shape right now, so I'm going to try the smooth tool. Okay, that did pretty okay on this side. What about this side? A little less looking good. And we'll probably need to take the same approach as we did with the other E. Let's just get rid of some of these excess points here and use these kind of to our advantage. We'll probably need to take the same process with the bowl of the E here to get it to look good. Let's get that over here. This really goes to show you how difficult good logo design is. So instead of trying to smooth tool that out, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna use that same process as I did before to create my own bowl of the E and then use the Pathfinder tool to integrate it. All right, so let's do that and like this, and let's change the color. Okay, so let's pop back out. That's looking okay. It's not looking great yet, but we can fix that. Let's start by getting rid of this one this way. This is like real chunky here. I'm gonna try to alleviate that a bit by doing that, a little bit of that. And now what we've lost is the difference between those two versus the stroke width. So let me try and get some of that back in here by moving. Oh, that's interesting. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Let's move. So one difference I'm noticing is this comes up closer than this does. So I'm going to make that change here too. And I think I need to add an anchor point as well. Oh, this is already, okay, this is starting to get some of that elegance back that I was looking for. Wow, see how much of a difference that makes? That's incredible, right? Let's smooth that out a bit. Oh, that's like 1,000 times better. Let's get this side back a little bit thicker. I feel like I de-thickened it a little bit too much. This still looks weird. You know what this needs? This needs like a nice sharp end. Okay, it's getting there. So let's see what we got here. Got a little bit of oddness still throughout here. Let's see if we put the color in the background if it still holds up. And why is this looking, what's the deal here? Why is that happening? That's why. So if this happens to you, at some point I accidentally got into grayscale color, switch it back to RGB, or better yet, CMYK, and you'll be in shape. All right, so this looks like it's doing good. Last, I am going to just add some color here. Select, same, fill color. Ooh. Object, expand, object, expand. Then use the Pathfinder to combine them. Object, expand, expand, add. Expand, add. That should be fine too. That's looking pretty good. Type's cleaned up. So I'm going to move this out of the way for a moment. Leave that as is. That's kind of nice looking by itself. I think I've got almost a strong logo here. Oh my gosh. All right. There's hope. Let's get this off to the side and just start selecting some of these bits that I don't need. Okay, so I can still see there's some stuff over here in this area and over there that I need to get rid of. So I just need to get some of them selected, and then I'll be able to get rid of them all. And we can even let's do select, same, fill color. Okay, that'll get rid of all of those. Oh, much better. Okay. So let's put the rebel back where it belongs, right in here. Let's put this a little off center to give it some interest. And then let's give it, let's say that purple is our background color. And then let's just edit artboards and try a couple different variations of this. So let's just see it on its own, right? What's it look like without all this extra? I actually kind of like that. Let's do a nice deep purple over here. Let's make this white. See what that looks like. Or even, let's make it a yellow. Stick with our brand colors, right? It's almost missing something there. But I don't know what. Let's try one without this stuff in the middle. I actually kind of like that a little bit better than this version. I'll leave it for now, though. Maybe it just needs to be a bit smaller. It feels a little more, yeah, that feels a lot more balanced. Okay. So I think this one is going to be a remove. And this one will be my final. And then I think what I'm going to take from this is that I really want this little nugget in this version here. Yeah. I think those two little stars add a lot. Might even be kind of fun to make them a yellow over here. It's a little more. Yeah, it's starting to feel good. Maybe this should be that color. Ooh, no, that was not ideal. Not a good idea. But maybe in these versions, the stars can. Yeah, that's kind of nice. Always be that color. Ooh. I like the look of that. That looks good. So I wonder how this would look on a website. I don't know if it matters. I don't know if I even like this one as much anymore. I kind of like the simplified versions a little bit better. And I like this one a lot with a little bit of color it has. I don't know if it needs all this that I originally planned, you know? Maybe I just decide to let this go. Maybe this isn't as good as I thought it was. This one definitely isn't. That one we can get rid of. But I really think these are the stronger ones. Maybe I do a third version that uses that bright yellow somehow. Ooh. Oh, I like this a lot. You know, that feels strong. These two feel the strongest. I think this works better not reversed. This one probably needs some work to be reversed, but I'm really liking the look and feel of these. So I think I'm going to save this. Oh my God, I did all that without saving. In my documents. Ha! I did it! Oh my gosh. So that is going from inking all the way to creating a logo in Illustrator, including variations and colors. So that probably ended up being a really long video, but that's okay. Logos take a long time. So with that, I hope that helps you out, and I'll see you later.